Baylor football now has an easier road to championships than TCU. Don't ask me, just ask the TCU coaches. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Oh boy, do we have a show for you today. Baylor has a new cornerbacks coach, and it comes with an awesome shot at TCU. Plus, we're going to have Pete Souza on the show later. We're going to talk about this NFL interest around the Big 12 coaching jobs and a little bit of Matt Rhule for you and what Pete thinks Matt Rhule could have done at Baylor. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Starting first, we know Baylor needs cornerbacks. Well, first they needed a cornerback coach, and they went out and got theirs on Sunday night. Paul Gonzales joins the Baylor staff after 13 years at TCU. Once again, Baylor just going for that Gary Patterson coaching tree. Paul Gonzales, Jared Anderson. Well, Gary Patterson. They just love plucking that Patterson tree and making it a little Fort Worth south, like literally, 90 miles south of Fort Worth. But what's so great about this, before we get into Paul Gonzales' credentials and why it's an awesome hire for Baylor, we need not look any further than this quote that he gave as to why this is a great hire for Baylor. I'm extremely excited for the opportunity to join. Let's start that over. I'm extremely excited for the opportunity to join Coach Aranda and Baylor football. I look forward to doing my part to make the Baylor secondary elite. Pursuing a championship is my primary goal, and I believe in Coach Aranda's vision to achieve that. This was not that long ago, guys. 2 years ago, TCU was playing for the national championship, and now their coaches are leaving to go to their biggest rivals because they have a better shot at a championship. Come on, man. This is too good. This is too funny, man. As soon as Baylor beat TCU this year for the first time in 5 years, their coaches are like, yep, you know what? That's probably the place I should be. That's ready to go right there. I mean, talk about it, man. Oh, the Sonny Dykes thing, it was going the wrong direction at the beginning of the 24 season. Same thing with Dave Aranda at Baylor. And they both turn it around to have 8-9 win seasons. And here we are. A coach after 13 years, surviving 2 head coaches, really 3 head coaches at TCU, is now saying, you know what? I kind of want to win championships again. I should go down to Baylor and do that. And boy, these TCU fans, they are in hell on social media, man. Oh, I mean, not believing that quote, thinking how far our program has fallen, and then trying to cope by saying, well, you know, our secondary hadn't been that good anyway. Look, you might believe that by the way you played against SMU and Baylor, but those are 2 pretty good teams, 2 teams that are better than TCU. But in reality, they were the 3rd best pass defense in the Big 12 this year. So still pretty good. And have been pretty good in the past. In fact, when he was coaching safeties, they had 6 NFL draft picks at safety in a 7-year span and had the Thorpe Award winner when he was coaching those defensive backs. So, yeah, I would say Paul Gonzales is pretty good. And what is up with this as of late? Because this did not happen as much as there were a ton of similarities between TCU and Baylor in terms of their schools and their athletic programs and their football programs. There was not a ton of overlap on the coaching staff. And now, within the last year, they have taken a guy in Jared Anderson who had been there for 24 years, 1 year at UTSA and then to Baylor. Paul Gonzales, 13 years and 3 different head coaches at TCU. And Gary Patterson, the best coach in that program's history, has much more recently gotten a paycheck from Baylor than he has from TCU. And in fact, I can almost guarantee you there was a conversation between Dave Aranda and Gary Patterson about Paul Gonzales. I mean, you think? The defensive guru, Gary Patterson, who was the guy that brought Paul Gonzales into the fold in Fort Worth. You don't think there was a discussion of like, hey, Gary, what's this guy all about? I like the way they've been playing defense the past few years, but what's this guy all about? Or maybe, just maybe, Paul Gonzales wanted to get out of this Sonny Dykes sinking ship and said to Gary, hey, could you put in a good word with Dave for me? I know you liked working down there this past year. You're working with the defensive backs. I know they're looking for something. Could you help me out a little bit here? I think either of those scenarios is likely. Like those definitely could have happened. They're all trying to jump ship at TCU, man. They want to come win championships. I mean, Javon Overshone, TCU grad, one of the highest ranking officials in Baylor football, just wants to win championships. Comes down to Baylor to do that. Can't do that at TCU. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. And a dynamite hire for Baylor. Like, there's not many where you're going to say, oh boy, yeah, I'm real excited about that cornerbacks coach coming in. But like, this is a super successful guy at a program within your conference that knows Texas, that knows the Big 12, that knows how to put guys in the NFL and knows how to put damn good pass defenses together. That's what Baylor got in Paul Gonzales, man. For a pass defense that was 11th in the Big 12 last year to go and get the coach of the guy who was the third best pass defense in the conference, auto win. Like, that's automatically a good hire right there. But then you add in all the extra stuff for the fans and the lip service of, hey, I want to go win championships, so I'm going to leave TCU and go to Baylor. It feels perfect, guys. It feels damn near perfect to get Paul Gonzales in here. Now they look for outside linebackers. There's a name that's been thrown out there that we're going to go over in tomorrow's show more in depth. A Kirby Smart guy that goes in there. And this all goes back to what I was talking about last week with these positions coming open of, Dave, we've given you everything else. We've allowed you to hire and fire a couple offensive and defensive coordinators. We've allowed you to demote anybody you wanted, promote anybody you wanted. This was our two main weaknesses, right? The pass rush and the pass coverage. This is our two main weaknesses this year. Go out and fix it. We're expecting championship level. That's what we're expecting here with this roster and this coaching staff and the final two pieces that you need to go out there and get. And clearly, Dave Aranda is talking about a championship vision. Okay. We heard it in that interview last week with Walker White. He alludes to that for sure. By the way, got to give a shout out to the Auburn fans that came to the channel. Usually I get the worst and the dumbest of the opposing fan bases that are mentioned in the video. And Auburn, I thought, was pretty level-headed, all told. I was not expecting that from an SEC fan base, but they were pretty level-headed and wishing Walker White good luck. But anyway, you heard Walker White talk about that. You've heard coaches talk about that have been hired in the last year or so. And certainly the players are aspiring towards that too. So good luck, TCU. You get, if this is a one-for-one trade, Kendall Briles had a pretty good year. And we get Paul Gonzales to fix our problems while also having Jake Spavital on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to say Baylor wins that trade. Maybe that's just me. Coming up, we're going to talk with Pete Souza about the Big 12 coaches getting that NFL interest and a little Matt Rhule take that I think will surprise a lot of you guys. My good friend and Big 12 expert, Pete Souza, coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of today's Locked On Baylor. That is TurboTax. You guys remember, okay, taxes used to be dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms. And then after that, you'd have to wait and wonder and worry if you were even going to get any money back, because sometimes you don't get a lot, trust me. Now, taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back, guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Now on to Pete Souza. All right, Pete Souza.
By the way, can I get a social media handle on here or something?
You were supposed to type that in at the beginning.
Pete Souza on Twitter, and I'm not hard to find.
Ain't too hard to find. Pete Souza. Pete Souza. We'll include that in the description. How about that?
Thanks, Cam. All right, yeah.
If you couldn't tell, Pete Souza joining the show. Inside the 12, ESPN, Pete Souza show on Rogue Media Sports Network, and really our resident Big 12 expert and a Philly guy. A Philly guy.
Yeah.
Pete, let's talk about the coaching cycle, because I think this is like literally one of your favorite things of the year is the coaching carousel.
Oh, yeah.
Both in college and in the NFL. And this is where it intertwines, because Matt Campbell of Iowa State fame has been asked to interview with the Chicago Bears. We've heard that Deion has very strong interest in the Raiders job. Whether that's being reciprocated remains to be seen. Right before we recorded, the contract has run out on Mike McCarthy. So certainly there's going to be some talk, some chatter of Deion and that job as well. What does it say with all this time, all this talk of the bias towards the SEC and the Big Ten and which one of those is better than the other? What does it say now that the NFL openings, they're looking for Big 12 coaches, or there's rumblings about Big 12 coaches around NFL jobs?
Well, coaches are going to do what they're going to do, right? If you're a good coach, you're going to emerge as a really good coach. And if you suck, you're just going to suck. That being said, the big place is a great place to thrive as a coach. And I think it's weird, man, of the Big 12. Like Brett Yormark.
I like the big place. I think that's cool. Like Fort Hood was always called the great place, which I think is a little overblown, but the big place. Come here.
The big place, baby. No, I believe that there's no better time to have prolific head coaches at the top of your programs, because there's so much shuffling of players in and out. Like for Iowa State, for instance, Matt Campbell's not going to get that job. Matt Campbell may not want that job. I have no idea, right? But that's my percentages in my head. But you know what I mean? Like he's clearly not the favorite to get the job. So he goes back to Iowa State. That's a great recruiting tool for the Cyclones. Sure. Same thing with Deion.
As if he needed the help. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. But what a sexy coach. Now Deion is even more, there's more like glitter around him and coaches.
And he could say, look, I didn't want to do the NFL thing. I want to coach your son. I want to make him the best he can be. And hey, maybe there is some truth to that. But yeah, you're right. You can just throw that at them.
And even Deion, like if I'm going to coach the Raiders, like I was on my show today, like kind of pooping all over the Raiders. But like at the same time, if Deion really wanted that job, he wouldn't say, well, I got to bring, Shiloh and Shador with me, So he's kind of like, I think the Cowboys job would be different. I think he would take that job with nobody coming with him. That'd be interesting. Yeah. So, but I do think it speaks very highly of the position that Brett Yormark has put the conference in with these TV deals and with the teams playing as well as they did. They had a strong, you could say bowl season is what it is, but the Big 12 had a strong bowl season. And the more and more light that is shined on this conference and the more publicity these coaches get, the more attractive they become to NFL programs. Matt Campbell and Deion Sanders are two guys who had great success in the Big 12.
Yeah. Matt Campbell specifically has been terrific over almost a decade now.
And Deion last year, look, nobody saw that. He's turned this program around.
Right.
Come on. So and Kenny Dillingham is one of the hottest young coaches in the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a guy that's really cool, because where in a world where everybody's chasing something, as far as the coaching ranks are concerned, you haven't heard anything about Dillingham wanting to leave Arizona State in a time where it would be absolutely prudent for him to take other opportunities and to look at other. He'll probably never be this hot again, in my opinion, unless he turns out to be one of these amazing head coaches. But we see this so often. These guys have a moment, and he capitalized on it with a new deal and an extension.
Right.
He wants to be in Tempe. Like, at least that's what he says, and it shows that he does want to stay there. So imagine if you have all these coaches come back. It's a pretty good look.
I know. I'm just now wishing that Matt Rhule's recruiting and coaching ability with Kenny Dillingham's mentality, mindset. That would have been something. That guy was shopping it around every off season, man. Would have loved that. You
Matt Rhule, baby.
Dude, talk about a lightning rod amongst Baylor fans, by the way. I know you've seen it too, but
why do people get on him?
I think it's because he shopped himself around after every season.
People, I'll tell you, one person was like, and I'll do my Texas accent, like, yeah, like, he's just kind of like, people around here just see him as like this slickster from the Northeast, just coming down here with the used car salesman talk.
That's the term, the used car salesman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I'm not saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There was that used car salesman. And I think there have been some stories that have come to light from some players that were like, oh, that doesn't make him look like a great guy, which is kind of par for the course for being a big time college football coach. There are some people who believe that in Baylor Nation, and there are some that think he was the second coming and that if he was still here, we would have won a national championship by now. Of course, me being me, Pete, I'm somewhere in the middle. I would have loved to have seen what a 10-year plan of Matt Rhule would have looked like, but we also can't forget he did not win a single game against a ranked team. He never beat a ranked team here, which Deion has not done at Colorado either, just throwing it out there. But like, Dave Aranda wins the Sugar Bowl with Matt Rhule's players. Like, that is true. But he also beat like 5 ranked teams that year and won the Big 12. Matt Rhule didn't do that. So I am interested to see where that would have gone. But maybe right place, right time in terms of that 21 team with Dave Aranda. What do you think? Like, what do you think about if Matt Rhule had stayed? Do you think this thing would have kept going?
No, I don't. I think.
Let's take the
NFL
thing out of it. Like, he's not
define stay. So Matt Rhule's going to be your next Grant Taft. Well, yeah, I think you get a national championship out of him at some point for sure. But that's like a lifetime commitment.
Shoot though, Pete, you're dangling a college football national championship in front of us. We'll take anything for that.
Yeah, no, but hold on now, because it's not going to be like, I got this thing right here I was talking about on my show. Okay, God damn, was Clemson amazing? I mean, you look at these championships. 2015, Alabama beats Clemson. 2016, Clemson beats Alabama. 2017, Alabama, Georgia. Okay, 2018, Clemson beats Alabama. 2019, Clemson, that was a Dave Aranda team, gets crushed by LSU. But you see Clemson, like, that's how you get a university spoiled. Like, realistically, if Matt Rhule were to have stayed at Baylor for, again, like, we're talking a 20-year commitment, I'm saying, like, you get like 1 or 2 years in the playoff and maybe a championship out of it. I'm not saying you're Dabo Swinney like that. That is, see, that to me is like, people get drunk off that. That's not real. Like, that Clemson run is so amazing. And if you're sitting here and you're a Baylor fan and you think that that's what you should be in store for, woof, I think there's a little issue with like reality.
I think we're taking the other one. 20 years, a couple college football playoff appearances, a national championship. I'm taking that. Trust me, brother. I'm taking that 11 times out of 10.
I believe that. I believe if he were to stay and made his home Baylor and his life was, I believe that. Like Scott Drew. Like, that's a great example. Like,
yes, there you go.
Dude, I was looking up Scott Drew's ranking. Then this just shows to where coaches all over the place are just getting screwed, I think, like by their programs and athletic departments. Scott Drew's winning percentage over the first 4 years in the Big 12 was like 28%.
Yeah, there's some extenuating circumstances there. Yeah.
4 years.
Correct.
Like, come on, man. Like, a coach goes 3 years with like a under 30% conference winning percentage. He's gone, Yeah. And I think Scott's project and what he was doing there was more to it than just basketball, but pretty amazing when you think about that, how much things have changed.
I also know, because now this is running around in my head, I also know you're a big sports nostalgia guy. You remember a time, you're old enough to remember a time, I'm not, when Nebraska was actually good at college football.
Oh, great.
And now Matt Rhule's there. So you say what he could have done at Baylor. Talk about the resources at Nebraska. Does Matt Rhule get Nebraska like deep in a college football playoff run and or playing for a national championship?
It goes back to my last point. If the university and the athletic department and the boosters can show patience, absolutely. But he's got to be patient too. He's got to stay. But I believe that. I believe like a coach of Matt Rhule's ilk. Now, but there's so many outliers. These coaches are people just like us, and these boosters and athletic departments, they get pissed. I mean, because they are Nebraska, right? There's a little delusion there. Everybody's waiting for Tom Osborne to walk through the door. That ain't happening. And nor Lawrence Phillips, but that is what the standard is there, right? And so there's got to be a commitment on both ends, and that is the great outlier. But yeah, I 100% think if Matt Rhule again puts 15 years in Nebraska, you're talking deep college football playoff runs.
That's Pete Souza of ESPN, the Pete Souza Show, Inside the 12. If you think Matt Rhule's going to win a national championship in Nebraska, let me know down in the comments below. If you think he would have done it at Baylor, because I know there are plenty of you out there.
What does Drake Toll think?
Below. I think Drake Toll is just thinking about what to put in the headline, man.
Hey, I've learned who knew I've learned so much from Drake.
Oh, I think Drake would have said he would have brought them to a couple of CFPs. Yeah. I don't know if he would have said they'd win the national championship, but I think Drake would say that.
Okay.
Anyway.
You might have to find out what he thinks. Okay.
Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, because then we're available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to Pete, and thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day as we are on the march towards 4,000 subscribers. We need your help there. We will be back later on with your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.